Welcome to Delay the Decay, the podcast for unashamedly ambitious men who want to live longer, lead better, and love deeper, prioritizing what matters most. I'm your host, Dan Harty, coach, entrepreneur, and former pastor, here to help you build a life of more intentional direction, not perfection, across 5 life domains: spiritual, relational, physical, mental, and financial. Welcome to another episode of Delay the Decay with Dan Harty. And my special guest today is none other than Spencer Schubert. And I'll tell you just in a minute how Spencer and I met. Kind of odd, but I love these kind of stories. But Spencer is an accomplished sculptor. Not sculptor, but sculptor. He's also sculpted. Spencer has dedicated his life to perfecting the art of capturing the likeness of people in his sculptures. The list of Spencer's work is long, but just to name a few, it's Bill Snyder. For those of you who are football fans or live in Kansas, Bill Snyder is a Hall of Fame Kansas State head coach, known for the greatest turnaround in college football. Another sculpture that he did is Buck O'Neil, a baseball legend and Negro League ambassador. Another is William Webb, the first American naval architect. And the William Webb statue is prominently displayed at the Webb Institute College of Engineering at Glen Cove, New York. And then a couple of sculptures that don't necessarily fit into these recent heroes are a couple of famous Stoics. And that is how do you say it? Aurelius?
Marcus Aurelius.
Marcus Aurelius and Seneca. And I think we're going to press into that a little bit. Spencer is what I call unashamedly ambitious. And he describes himself as having a native entrepreneurial spirit. So Spencer, there's a lot to talk about. We're not going to tap even, we're just going to get that syrup coming out a little bit. And so I look forward to maybe a second and third conversation down the road.
Absolutely.
So glad you're with me.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. We've had conversations before, but this is the first one that has been recorded. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, can I tell the story of how we connected?
Sure.
I think it's courageous and on my part. But I've gone down this journey in recent years, even founding Delay the Decay, of Latin term of Memento Mori, remember death, and really just wanting to live a life that is conscientious of the brevity of life, and that my days are limited. And I stumbled across a website, a podcast, a newsletter, and a company called 4K Weeks. And we're gonna get into this a little bit. And so I just like this is the greatest idea I've ever heard.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. So I found out, I just researched them, where's this based out of? And it's based in the Kansas City area, which is where one of my sons live. And so on a whim, when I was in Kansas City visiting my son and his family, I decided to hunt down Spencer, the founder of 4K Weeks, and say, would you have coffee with me or breakfast? And he goes, sure. He didn't even hesitate. He didn't even know who I was. And so we've met twice in Kansas City and have just had a lovely conversation on life and the meaning of life. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
It's funny when that email came out of the blue, because I send out the newsletter and I get responses regularly, but you were the first one to ever say, hey, I'm going to be in the area. Should we have coffee? It's happened a few times since then. But I do think you're right. It was a courageous thing that most of us don't do. And, look what it's spawned a great friendship and, a couple coffees and now this. So I think that's a spectacular lesson for all of us to just send the email.
Yeah. Something I am learning. I'm hesitant to say ever that I've learned, but I'm learning.
Sure.
And my wife has been a big help with this, is when something is on your mind or somebody is on your mind, follow through.
Yeah.
You're never going to regret it, are you?
Yeah. Epictetus said, never ignore a generous impulse, right? If you think, I should, then do it.
And do it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to start off with a question. It's a question that I've been asking all of my guests, and here it is. What's one small decision that you've made lately that has helped you progress in the right direction? One small decision.
Okay, so I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say two small decisions because they relate to kind of the two different arenas that are the most important in my life. And the first one involves being a parent. So I have two teenage children, well, almost 13, and then a 15 and a half year old. Son is younger, daughter is older. And I want to be the best, absolutely the best dad that I can be. And, that is difficult even some days to define. What is the best dad, right? Someday the best dad is a drill sergeant, and someday the best dad is someone you can give a hug to, right? And so, specifically with my son, because I know you've read the newsletter, and I talk a lot about what it means to be a man in this age. I'm just trying to think about what do I need? What does he need from me? And I think what he needs from me is less. Because less talking, less advice, right? He's in that minute where he's trying to figure out his own things. I have laid the groundwork, I think, fairly effectively. He knows he sees me every day doing the things that I am supposed to be doing, even when I don't want to do them. And much of the programming that I'm able to offer to him has already been written. And so I said to him last night, I sat on the couch and I said, hey buddy, I know, that you aren't wanting a ton of advice from me lately. And I totally get that because you are your own person. And it's hard for me because I feel like I've learned a lot and I feel like I've got a lot to share, but it's totally fine if you don't want to hear it right now. And so I will try to do a better job of respecting that. But please, if you need something, know that I'd love to talk about it. Right. And, so that's the first thing. And I think, if I can follow through, because the follow through is the hard part, telling myself I should shut up is one thing. Actually shutting up is another. I think it'll be better.
That is so hard. How old's your son?
He's about to be 13. It is so hard because, everything. I have an opinion about everything. I have done all of the things that he's struggling with 100 times, right? And, we all say, if I could go back to high school, I would, right? Well, you can't. But you feel like you can with your kids, but you can't.
Yeah. You could see things coming that aren't going to be, have good endings that you want to help him stay away from.
Yeah. So that's the personal thing. And then the business, and then, also personal, but the business and competition thing that I've been focusing a lot on lately is to get the heck out of my head. I can be in my head. I have a constant dialogue. It is a strength in many, many ways, but it is also a weakness. And the one thing that's really shown me that weakness is the basketball court. I feel like the people who have less internal dialogue are better shooters, are better passers, because they're not thinking about what they're doing. They're just doing it.
Sure.
And so yesterday at basketball, I had a couple of moments where I was like, just a kind of a really good dribbling combo out of a tangle of people that ended up with me with the ball, and then a made 3-point shot. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, I wasn't thinking about that at all. I just did that, right? I wasn't thinking, ooh, what should I, So I think getting out of my head is something that really, and our marriage counselor tells me this all the time. She's like, you just need to just quiet the brain and listen to your body, right? You need that is, you have plenty of thinking going on. We don't need more thinking.
Yeah.
So that's something that, again, if I can follow through, I think is going to be really useful.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
How do you live a busy life? You're in an intentional life. So you're not just busy for the sake of busy. It's very intentional with relationships and health and pursuing your vocation.
Sure.
How do you exercise the practice of being quiet and slowing down and getting outside of your mind?
It is so hard. And that is actually a conversation I'm in with myself right now. Do I need to have a deliberate practice? I used to meditate for 20 minutes a day. I did that for like 3 or 4 years, and I just didn't feel like I was making any progress. Looking back, I think maybe that was fairly, I was wrong about that. And so I've actually been thinking, do I need to set aside 30 minutes a day to just sit quietly, which is insane to think about because my day is pretty much scheduled from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. But, there's that quote about, meditation or being quiet. If you can't afford 10 minutes a day, then you probably need 20.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so that is the, when you're in the middle of your life, and I know you know this, with all of the demands of children and family and work, because I'm in the peak of my earning years, right?
Hmm.
At 48, or
Yeah.
maybe even past the peak. Um, it's just hard to squeeze everything in. And then I'm just wondering if it's worth the 30 minutes, and likely it is. So the
Yeah.
answer is I'm not sure.
Hmm.
Um, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. I'm glad you're
So
thinking about it.
yeah,
Most of us don't think about it. We just continue down the crazy trail
yeah,
till something snaps. I
yeah,
love the simple illustration of the oxygen mask. In
yeah,
order to really be able to serve others, we've got to be able to, take care
absolutely.
of ourselves. And one of the ways of taking care of ourselves, besides exercise and nutrition and learning and good relationships, is learning to quiet the mind. And
Yeah,
that's I think that's the hardest of disciplines for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about, a good friend of mine says that his best quiet mind time is when he's running, and I don't typically do much running. And I've been thinking about adding 2 mornings a week of 3 miles. The trouble I have with that is that I will immediately try to run those 3 miles hard,
Mm.
as opposed to just run them because I'm running them. The
Right.
point being the quiet uh, mind, as opposed to the let's get our heart rate to 180. You know what I mean? That's that's a struggle for me
Right. Too.
often.
Now I'm in a little bit different season of life than you. I'm
Right.
15, 20 years ahead of you. So we have no kids in the house. My peak earning years are way behind me.
Right.
But still, like, I've got that same drive to achieve and create and build. And
Yeah.
so when I started the 40-day fight in January, one of the things I knew I needed to do is I needed to slow down.
Yeah.
Just slow down, get outside of my mind.
Hmm.
And one of the things that's worked for me, it may not work for others, is that um, the first hour after I get up,
Mm.
not checking email, I'm not checking texts,
Yeah.
I'm not checking social media, sports
Right.
scores, or finance pages. All
Right.
things I enjoy, by the way.
That you want to do. Yeah. All things you would love to do. Yeah.
Yeah, so I sit quietly and
Yeah.
I read. For me, I read the Bible and I journal.
Yeah.
And it's been a good exercise, and it's not always easy because
Yeah.
I know there's things waiting for me.
Right.
So it's a discipline, right?
That's a great habit. It's one that I have had previously, again, different seasons of life. I used to wake up and journal and write for 20 minutes a day. And it's one of those things that it does feel like it just totally turns the volume down all day long a little bit in your brain.
Yeah,
Again, the seasons, and this is where the responsibilities that we have come in, right?
totally.
That it's just not a thing that I can do right now. And so what else can fit in, and I think it's important to, I always have not a hard time. I'm always watching the balance between pushing myself hard, being my own worst critic, but also being very kind and patient with myself. And
Mhm.
it's a balancing act, right? You know what I mean? Like, on one hand, if I say I'm not going to have 2 cookies, then I don't have 2 cookies. On the other hand, today's been a really stressful, hard day, and so that, you know what I mean? I think you can
Yes.
slide down the slope of permitting yourself to do whatever, right? Or you can also crush yourself into oblivion. And I think the
Yes.
balance is important.
Yeah. I call that a grace-paced life. It's
Yeah.
just right. It's
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Some of the things I want to really press into today, and wherever we head, I'm good with that.
Sure.
But it's really about as I describe you, as being unashamedly ambitious,
Yeah.
and that you have a native entrepreneurial spirit,
Right.
and you have created and built several things
Sure.
in your adult career. Would you share just some of the ideas and concepts and businesses that you have created?
Sure. I didn't know that I was entrepreneurial. Both, my parents were awesome. My mom is still awesome. My dad was awesome.
Mhm.
They both had periods of their own, small businesses, and then also periods of working for larger, universities and things like that. And so I guess I was slightly exposed to it, but I didn't plan to be an entrepreneur. It's just that when you graduate with a degree in sculpture, there is really no job you can go get. There's no, I mean, that was just a really lucky thing that happened to me, that there was no, it wasn't a communications degree where I could just go get a number of jobs. And so I didn't get a job. And then I spent quite a few years really convincing myself, I guess subconsciously, that there was no way I could make a living making sculptures for people. And so I needed to do construction, right? I owned a remodeling business right out of college with some friends of mine. We did, all sorts of small remodeling, thinking about growing it until I just kind of got tired of doing it. And then, then I just was picking up odd jobs all the time. And then finally one day I said to my, at that time, girlfriend, my now wife, I was working to build a landscaping company with a good friend of mine. And it was a struggle. The first year was a real struggle. And I came home one day and I said to her, if I'm going to struggle at something, if I'm going to struggle to get something off the ground, it isn't going to be this, right? Yeah. And so that's when, thankfully, she said, she had a pretty good job. We could afford to live on just her salary. And I started the studio. And so I'm trying really hard right now not to get too far in the weeds and just to give you the 30,000 foot view. I go day by day. And so I started the studio. It made a couple of quick decisions that made it really successful. And then 2008 happened and a few of our big clients just disappeared because they were in the home, making things for home spaces. And so then, that kind of set things back and then, kept working on that. All the while, I didn't realize it was the entrepreneurial spirit, but it's just in me. I like to build things. I like to make things. I'm always looking for an opportunity. Back then it was an opportunity for leverage. It was, how can I make, we were not broke, but broke, right? For a small couple, tons of resources, just not the green ones. Right. And so, so looking for any opportunity to make as much money as I could per hour. Right. And so, while also growing the sculpture studio. And that eventually led, the sculpture studio started taking off. I got my first commissions. Those started kind of, it's the catch-22. You have to have a reputation to get the work, but you have to have done the work to get the reputation. And the only real way to do that is just to slog at it. And if I could go back, I would work on building my network. I've never really been big on building a network. I have friends. I don't want to, I've always felt like I don't want to artificially make friends so that I can have more business. My dad always said people like to do business with their friends. Anyway, but it just took years for that to happen. And in the meantime, I was always trying things. And I heard this podcast a long time ago. It's Pat Flynn, the Smart Passive Income podcast. It was at the beginning of podcasting. I mean, we're talking like 2012, 2013 or something like that. And he had this woman on who was doing this thing called Amazon FBA, which is Amazon fulfilled by Amazon. Amazon had opened their fulfillment network up to its third-party sellers. A lot of people don't know this, but 50% of the products sold on Amazon are not sold by Amazon. They're sold by third-party sellers. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. We've got a small baby now, and I like to be with my wife. And so I go with her to the grocery store and Target and things. And just buying stuff on the clearance aisle, relabeling it and selling it for the new price on Amazon. And I realized, oh, this is a lever that works, right? This is a system that doesn't require you to be there, but will sell things all night long. And we built that brand over many different iterations of it. The only thing I think that the only credit I will give myself is that I saw the windows closing and I stepped through the window before that window closed. First everybody was doing retail arbitrage is what that's calling, buying stuff on the clearance aisle at Target, selling it for full price on Amazon. Well, obviously the more people that do that, there's a race to the bottom. I saw that coming. I saw different windows closing. And so we ended up building a private label brand. We were shipping containers full of product from, Taiwan with our label of our products and selling them on Amazon. And that was just happening in the background while the sculpture studio was going because it was, it's called passive income. It's anything but passive, right? But it doesn't require it's not a slot machine. You don't have to sit there and pull the lever in order for the chips to come out, You can do the work over here and then the chips just keep coming out. And so we built that brand and sold it in 2021. We have, since then reinvested into other businesses, and that's where 4K Weeks comes in. We sold the brand and I was looking for things to buy, and I had purchased the 4K Weeks poster a year before from a Facebook ad. And these two delightful, 22-year-old Spanish guys had built the company.
Hmm.
And then when we were looking for businesses to buy and it popped up, I was like, oh, we have to buy this brand, right? I mean, it was not even like a spreadsheet decision, right? I mean, it ended up, we looked at it, we did all the due diligence,
Sure.
but like, I knew we were buying this business, right? And so, that's opened a whole bunch of other opportunities. I've done so many things that it's hard to even describe, mostly because I'm looking for those levers to pull, that help magnify my output. So does that answer that question?
It does. I want to get into the 4K weeks in just a couple of minutes here. You talk about pulling levers.
Yeah.
And I think you said something in one of our conversations about pulling the biggest easy lever. Like, so this audience that you're speaking to is a unashamedly ambitious audience that they want to build something that is sustainable for their family and for the benefit of others.
Sure.
You set out not necessarily having a 10-year plan that you're going to create this and then this and then that. Like,
right.
What would you say to the audience that they just have that ambition to build and create, and they're not even quite sure what that is? What's the next step, and how might you identify the big, easy levers?
Okay, so that's a great question. And first, unashamedly ambitious. I have enough money. I think we confuse in our culture, we glorify wealth so much, and even more so than when I was young, right? It used to be rare to see a Ferrari, and now they're all over the place.
Yes.
And I think that the greatest feeling a human being can feel other than unconditional love is the feeling of progress, right? And I think that is what I'm chasing. I want to, at the end of the day, feel like, oh, I really did something today. And when I'm most frustrated, it's when I feel like I worked all day and I didn't actually do anything. And so I just want to clarify, my ambition is to get awesome things done. It's not to make more money. And I don't think that making more money is enough of a motivation to get most people to keep their butt in the chair doing the work they need to do to have the success.
Agreed.
If I was going to talk to somebody I got really lucky in so many different ways, right? And my wife, when we were first married, she would talk about how I have my thing, this sculpture thing, right? I love to make things. It is I am most happy when I am making things. And I've known that for a long time. And it's very lucky to have that. And so I guess what I would say to somebody who is ambitious, but isn't sure where to put that energy, I'd say first, it's pretty easy to jump into a specific business, try to get a business idea, but like what gives you the most joy, right? What interactions in the world, not necessarily with people or whatever, are the things where you're like, that was awesome, right? And then there's gotta be a way you can turn that joy into joy for other people, which typically results in financial remuneration, right? Maybe not. And again, with that ambition, we get so caught up in the wealth part of it, the Ferrari driving part of it, as opposed, and everyone needs to make money. And I will say, making money is a wonderful thing. Right? It's made my life much better. But it would be better to have a day filled with progress, feelings, and joy created in the world for myself and other people than to be rich, right? After a certain point, certainly.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that I would say if you were looking for where to put that energy. If you're like, I got all this energy, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'm not sure where. That'd be the first thing. In fact, when I was first building the private label brand, there's this thing called a touch list. If you're trying to figure out, if you're trying to figure out a product to sell, was what they were talking about. Now that's almost impossible because every product you can possibly imagine, you can find 2,000 sellers of it on Amazon, right? But a touch list is you just keep a piece of paper and a pen in your pocket. And all day you write down every single thing you touch. Toothbrush. And that will just help you become aware of how you kind of mindlessly walk through the world and be like, oh, wait, you know what? Every morning when I brush my teeth, setting my toothbrush down is really inconvenient for me. I really wish there was a this. Okay, there's the product idea, right? And so that's a way to notice those interactions in the world that bring you joy and can create joy in the world. As far as the big lever is concerned, here's what I mean by that. And I learned this when I was in college. I did construction, and it was in Section 8 housing. And so these were places that we were demoing kitchens and rebuilding them. Places that were filled with roach poop, and it was disgusting. And we'd have to go in and demo these kitchens as quickly as possible. And they weren't built that well because it's cheap materials. And I found there were certain places that if you put the crowbar, you could tear a whole wall of cabinets off with, 2 or 3 tugs. But if you put the crowbar like 2 inches lower, you could work all day long and try. And so that's what I mean when I say a big lever. There's like, you get it in the right spot and you do some tests. Like, is this the spot? No. Is this? Oh, there it is. Oh gosh, when I move that thing an inch, that whole wall of cabinets moves. Maybe this is where I need to put my energy.
Yeah.
And so that's is good. Basically just when something starts pulling you downhill, that is where you should double down and put your effort. And with the private label business, the name of it was Madison Supply. It really was like this whole system that other people have built that they will allow me to take advantage of. I should double down. I should spend as much money as I can trying to fill that system as much as possible and not get distracted on all of the million different things that you could when building a business. And when we sold that brand, it was very sparse. I mean, we could have done all of these different little things, that maybe would have had a 0.1% increase on the bottom line, but taken 3 weeks to accomplish. And I just ignored all of that. Like, how much money can we spend on ads? I will happily pay $1 if they send me back $2. I will happily pay $1 if they send me back $1.20, right?
Sure.
I will spend $1 million today if that's the equation. And I think that's what I mean when once you find that joy that you can create in the world that has some value associated with it, figure out where to put that crowbar and then just start yanking on it.
So good, Spencer. A couple things that I heard you say is that, like, if we're chasing wealth just for wealth itself, and money is helpful.
It's wonderful.
Right? It's wonderful. But if we chase it, rather than thinking through, is this idea sustainable? Does this bring me joy? Does this bring other people joy? Does it somehow promote human flourishing and make the culture and society better? Thinking through those lenses.
Yeah.
And I think also, you didn't say this explicitly, but you were pretty in tune with the way that you're wired. That you like to build things. I mean, you're a crazy guy who's restoring a Jeep. It's like, if you open that hood and you told me to point to the spark plug, I might point to the battery. Like, I'm not that guy. I want to be that guy, but I'm just not that guy. So I would never be in that business.
I'm barely that guy, though. When it comes to small engines, I know enough to get it apart and hopefully get it back together.
Okay. Well, you got the courage to try it.
Yeah.
I was thinking through when I've kicked doors down to try to build or accomplish something. When I've kicked doors down, it's rarely worked out for me. And I'm thinking about that lever.
Yeah.
If you're pulling and the lever snaps, it's not coming.
Yeah.
For me, the metaphor is don't kick the door down, like push on it.
Yeah.
And see if there's, it doesn't mean there's a lack of effort and persistence, but
right.
But if it's locked, if I've got to break through it, it's probably not an idea that I should pursue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's, that is it. There's Seth Godin. I'm not sure if you know who Seth Godin is. He's a really interesting thinker. He, he always talks about that gap, right? There's the valley of sorrow or whatever you go through. And it's important, it's hard to know when to quit. Quitting never feels good. But yeah, if you've been beating your head against that same door for 6 months, maybe it's time to see if there's a window you can go through or something, right? And that we have a hard time with that, especially type A people who are just, driven. It's really hard to say, maybe I'm running down the wrong path, but it's important to be aware of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So hard. Well, let's press into 4K weeks a little bit.
Sure.
Sure. So what is 4K weeks?
Sure. So 4K weeks is based on
buy it.
Yeah. What's that? And
what is it and why did you buy it?
Okay. Yeah. So 4K Weeks is basically a company that sells a poster. And the poster is based on the principle that the average human lifespan is about 4,000 weeks. And you can put 4,000 quarter-inch squares on a poster pretty easily. And it's a stark visual representation of your time on this planet. When you put your entire life on a 24 by 36 poster is kind of mind boggling, right? It's like, oh, I mean, mine's halfway full, right? This is a 100-year poster. And so that's what 4K Weeks is. It basically is it's a memento mori. It's a way of reminding yourself on a regular basis that you're going to die, not to be morbid. And it's funny on the social media for 4K Weeks, people always are like, oh my gosh, this terrifies me. Oh my gosh, it's like marking your days on a prison wall. Oh my gosh, this gives me so much anxiety. And I'm always like, that. Then you need to focus on it more, right? Because it doesn't give me any anxiety at all, because I look at it all the time and I know that I'm going to die. And the truth of that today makes it just a little bit more likely that I'm not going to waste any minutes today, which is the reason for the tool it's not about death. It's about life.
Were you already in this mindset before
Yes.
you knew that 4K Weeks existed?
Yes. So, I've always wanted to learn, and thankfully I've had some good friends who also have wanted to learn and have walked with me down this path, right? I have a mastermind group that's been meeting for 10 years. I have one friend who since college, we've been talking about, maybe it's self-improvement, personal development, entrepreneur. It's all kind of the same thing, right? And so that, we started out reading books like The E-Myth, it's about franchising and entrepreneurship, all sorts of books about how to do this thing that we want to do, which is to have success. Mm-hmm. And that led me to, in fact, it was right. I remember when I started Madison Supply, the brand that we sold, mm-hmm. part of that had me spending a lot of time at this freight salvage place where I would, because it was an auction, I'd have to be standing there for 20 minutes waiting for them to do certain things. And I'd be listening to podcasts and listening to audiobooks. And one of the first audiobooks I read was Ego is the Enemy. Not read, but one of the first audiobooks in this, Stoicism, Memento Mori, The Awareness of Death, was Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And I just remember being like, oh my goodness, I wish somebody had played this for me when I was in high school, right? You can only control a small amount of things in your life, and almost all pain in life is when you're focused on things that you can't control, right? And I mean, so that led me down the path of Stoicism. And this poster is basically just a modern Stoic tool, right? Just a reminder of your death. And so, yeah, I mean, I've read every book written about Stoicism. If I have a religion, it would be Stoicism. And so then when I saw the ad, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I have to have this on my wall, because it is a tool to help me do the thing I'm trying to do, which is to squeeze all of the juice out of these, fairly short amount of years. I mean, I feel like I could make, you mentioned the Jeep. I would love to take 6 months and just do a nut and bolt restoration of this Jeep. I could make use of 600 years. I could make really good use, but I only get, based on genetics, somewhere around 90.
Yeah. I'm going to step out of the frame for just a minute.
Sure.
I am one of the reasons that, the number one reason I reached out to you, as you know, is that Memento Mori has been important to me. And when I was a pastor of a church, on my day offs, I would oftentimes start the morning in a cemetery.
Yeah, that's right.
And I would read gravestones, like Rain Man. Like I would just
sure
read them. I'd look at the beginning date, the end date, beginning date, end date. And it sounds morbid, but what it does is it, like nothing else, it reminds me to prioritize what's important today.
Yeah.
I've got 2 of these in my office, and
Yep.
which is kind of weird. But back in the day, not that long ago, 200 years ago, it was not uncommon to find stalls like this,
right,
in people's homes, right, as a reminder of the shortness of death. And then I've got this, which it's a lot scarier, than yours.
Yeah.
I haven't filled in my last 2 years.
Oh, really?
And I had you make it to 100. So if I'm understanding it right, 4K Weeks can make a poster. You put in your birth date.
Yeah.
It'll give you, based on your what the mortality tables say, or based on 100 years.
Yeah, basically, we is a 88-year version, a 100-year version, and a 125-year version for the truly ambitious. And then you put in your birth date, and we pre-fill it up to today, and then you take it from there. And in fact, my dad died 2 years ago at 88, and if you can see, there's a little dark dot on this. I felt like, because it's a 100-year poster, but I felt like to be intellectually honest with myself, I needed to mark that date too, because
Wow.
When we first bought 4K Weeks, the guys who built it had built this program and this website that were really, really awesome. I wouldn't have built it. I didn't have the skill set to do the coding, but it was a desktop application that would create the posters. And so, 20 people would put in an order in a day. And then that night I would have to take, this is like the first month we bought it, I would have to take those orders, enter the information into a spreadsheet, and that would generate all the poster files. And then we would print those. And so I would see all the posters. And most of them are people my age and younger, right? It's easy to buy this poster when you're in your 20s. It feels like you have your whole life ahead of you. But occasionally there would be people in their 70s and 80s. And that is there's a woman who follows us on social media on the Instagram page. Her name's Winnie Brewer. And I believe she's an artist. I believe she's 81. And her poster looks totally different. I mean, it is because I think she only has the 88-year poster. It's terrifying. I just think that there's no reason to keep the Band-Aid over the festering wound of our mortality and not look at it. There's every reason to tear the Band-Aid off and just be like, I don't get much here. I better make use of it.
I had you when you made my poster, you let me put a saying up top.
Uh-huh.
And I put a verse from Psalm 90 that says, Lord, teach me
us
to number my days,
Yeah.
that I might gain a heart of wisdom.
Yeah.
If you want to grow wise, it's not by putting our head in the sand as if we're going to be here forever.
Yeah.
It's looking on the horizon and living today like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. And that lines right up with the, both be hard on yourself intellectually, but also have grace with yourself. It's the same thing. It's like you have to, in order to learn, you must first know where you stand. And if you're not willing to look at the, that's like in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, if you look inside yourself, what you find will set you free. And if you don't look inside yourself, what you don't find will destroy you. And I think that's just all about, you're either growing or you're dying. There's no stasis. There's only a trend line either up and to the right or down and to the right.
Yeah. So delay the decay. You and I have talked about this,
Yep.
this concept a little bit. And the reason it's been important to me and the reason that I took the time and the money to trademark it and do this podcast is that we're all in some state of decay.
Yeah.
And it's a hard truth. But the reality is when you get to my age and I'm getting ready to go to my 50th. It's hard to even say this. 50th high school reunion.
That's a big number.
I'm sure I'm not going to recognize people
Yeah.
that I did daily life with because of the decay.
Right.
So we can't stop the decay, but
Yeah.
we can delay it by
Totally.
healthy rhythms, right? With exercise and what we put in our mouth and what we, healthy sleep, healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Thinking about the brevity of life. So Peter Attia likes to talk, he refers to it as health span rather
Health
than
span.
lifespan,
Yeah.
which I really appreciate, or healthy longevity.
Right.
I don't know that you use any of these terms, or you probably have these
Yeah.
terms and other terms, but describe to the audience in your busy life of running 4K weeks, of being a very active sculptor, having a busy family. What does delaying the decay look like in your life on a
Yeah.
daily or weekly basis?
Sure. And that's a great question. And I do love the delay the decay because it just gets right to the point of all of it, right? We're trying to delay it. We can't delay it, So I learned a great, there's this Jim Carrey quote. My father was a great man who taught me many lessons, and many of the lessons he taught me, he didn't mean to, right? My dad was wonderful and awesome and spectacular in all of the best ways. when I was in high school, he was about 300 pounds. Now he was 6'5", but that's still, he was a large man. And I don't mean that in a muscular way. He got that under control when I was in college and, was exercising and things, but wasn't necessarily trying to drive himself to fitness and, wasn't weightlifting. He would go to the Y and he would exercise, right? But he wasn't really trying to build strength. And we had lunch every week when, almost his entire 80s, he died at 88. When we I would just see how not having that strength just kind of made everything else harder. And, I think of the end of your life as like a Tetris game. Have you ever played Tetris?
I have not.
Okay, so it's this game with all the stacking little bricks and they fall down from the top and you have to reorient them and fit them into the slots. And if you clear a line, it disappears. And so you kind of create headroom by succeeding, right? Okay. But inevitably the stack is rising because you just can't get them all fit together. And the end of your life is like the last bit of Tetris when you play it. It's like you make one mistake, oh, it's fine. Make 2, 3, 4, 5, boom, 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 game's over, right? Yeah. And I feel like that the delay the decay specifically is like trying to keep those lower lines clear so you have all this headroom. And so my dad really taught me that lesson, and I am determined to take as much physical fitness into my 80s as is humanly possible. And so I have let me go back a little bit. I herniated a disc in my back when I was 18. I was horsing around with the guy who's 6'5", 300 pounds, ended up playing lineman at Drake University. And he was like, over the shoulder. And I was like, I'm going to throw him over my back, right? It's not going to happen, right? And so, that resolved itself because I was 18. But every 10 years, it seemed to flare up and give me like, a week of laying in the bed. Really, really kind of messed up. And to the point where in 2019, it kind of came back. And for like 3 months, I was only sleeping 2 months a night. Sciatic pain was a disaster. It was, the back doctor at the hospital is like, oh, well, we'll try this steroid injection, but probably going to be surgery. You're basically like, you're an old man now. This is going to suck forever. Deal with it. Next patient. Right.
Oh man.
And so I had to do the steroid shot because I just needed to start sleeping again. And so 2 weeks before the COVID lockdowns happened, I got this steroid shot. My wife and I talk about, so much luck in my life. So many amazing things have happened. It would have been a disaster to go through that, 6 months of upheaval we all went through with the back issue. That steroid shot gave me a minute. It reduced the inflammation to the point where I was like, this is never going to happen again. I am, you can't control injuries and accidents and stuff like that, but I am never going to not have the core strength to support my lower back ever again. So I have a physical therapist that I meet with every month. My wife and I buy a year package with him. He's not a physical therapist in the sense of a physical therapist chain that the guy graduated 10 years ago and hasn't learned a single thing since.
Right.
He is like, very much in the camp of the Peter Attias of the world, learning the cutting edge things that are happening. Because this, we know so much more about how to build muscle, how to maintain strength than even 5 years ago, right? Yeah. So I have that physical therapist, meet with him every month. Have a nutritionist, have an appointment with him at 3 o'clock today. Have a trainer. Every single one of those is something that would be the last thing that I would stop spending money on. I lift weights intensely 3 days a week. I play basketball intensely with 20 and 30-year-olds. I'm 48, twice a week. And that's the point. And there's the delay part, right? There's all sorts of ways to think about that word delay. And I think a lot of people are trying to hold on to their youth, delay the aging with plastic surgery and with all sorts of, weird contortionist things that are not what we're talking about here. I just want to be able to sprint 100 yards when I'm 90. If I get the privilege to live to 90, I'm going to be able to sprint then. And that's what I'm doing. And it's hard, with the family to fit it in. It's hard, right? My kids, we've been homeschooling for the last 5 years. My kids decided that they want to go to school next year. So they're going to a private school. And I've just been thinking, oh my goodness, it's going to change everything about my schedule. When am I going to work out? I've been dealing with that lately. because it's hard to squeeze it in, but it's essential. It is absolutely essential.
How does your weekly regimen, the nutrition, the 3 times a week strength training, the basketball,
Yeah.
how does it help you be a better version of yourself? We know it's helping delay the
Yeah.
decay,
Yeah.
but it also has like tangible benefits in helping you like engage better with your relationships, your wife, your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in every way, right? There's not a single part of my life that is not, and you know, most of our culture, maybe it's changing. Most of our culture is under fitnessed and overweight. And it's hard. It's actually funny. The nutrition thing, I've been focused on my nutrition for a while, but I've only been working with the nutritionist for a month. And it is hard in this culture to eat healthy, which is insane, right? It's like there's not I went to lunch with my brother last week. There was not a single thing on the menu that that would have fit in my nutrition plan, which is not extreme, right? It's just, you know, lots of protein, less fat, still need carbs, right? You know, it's fairly normal.
Sure.
Right. There wasn't a single thing that was on the menu that wasn't going to crater my day. And even if I had the leanest dinner possible, going to kick me 30 grams over in the fat department, you know?
You're right.
And so,
Yeah.
I totally empathize with people who don't know where to start in this.
Yeah.
Because it is painful and it is difficult and there's a lot to learn and it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that is so much. It's overwhelming that, only thing I can say is that the greatest thing in the world is to be ready for anything at any moment from a physical perspective. If I needed to go run 2 miles right now, I could do that at a very fast clip and then finish the workday. Another thing, we went to New York you mentioned the William Webb statue that's on Long Island, New York. My dad is from Long Island. When we installed that statue, I think it was 2019. My mom and dad went with us on the unveiling with them. You know, we made a vacation out of it. And so we went to New York City, and my kids and my wife and I love to walk and see cities. And so we were going to walk through Central Park from the hotel to the restaurant. And my dad really wanted to and just couldn't. There was just no way he could make that walk without really slowing us down. And, you know, to his credit, he was in his mid 80s at the time. There's, you know, a lot of people don't even make it to that age, but that was another lesson where I'm like, I'm going to be able to do that, barring some, and this is where, again, it gets difficult, barring something that is outside of my control. I'm going to do that walk. I'm going to be able to do that walk with my grandkids.
Love it. Yeah, that's super helpful. I was thinking about as I've listened to your podcasts, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but you are an avowed capitalist.
Yes.
Is it true? But yet at the same time, I've heard like deep compassion from you for others. Like you often talk about how amazing your life is, how thankful you are. You described it as being lucky. I'm very cognizant of the fact that that I'm privileged. You know, growing up in the family that I grew up in, living in the area that I live in, having a college degree,
right,
being having all the resources to learn and continue learning. And I worry about those that don't have the same opportunity, don't have the same resources. I think of people in rural America that, you know, we think of inner cities as being the poorest. It's really rural America.
Absolutely.
There's no Whole Foods or Sprouts. There's a dollar store where you go in and buy packaged food. What's my question here? How do we as a culture, a society, change the trajectory, really come alongside people that don't have the same resources that we do?
Yeah. It's
thoughts on
it's
that?
hard. And I think one thing that helps me is to remember that everything is a cycle. We don't exist in a point in history. We exist in the flow of history. And when we were younger, things were different. not like different buildings and things, but like the vibe. Let's just say the vibe. The vibe was different. There was a time in human history where it was disgusting to show that you were fabulously wealthy, right? Mm-hmm. So these things, they ebb and flow. And I think you're right. I am so freaking lucky. I have been so lucky, but I have also worked harder than almost anyone else I know. Yeah. So it's a weird scale to keep balanced. And now I think about this, immigration is a big topic in this country right now, right? Mm-hmm. Empathy is important, and empathy is just the ability to drop yourself into someone else's shoes for a minute and be like, oh, maybe it might be like that, right? Mm-hmm. There's studies that show that the more wealthy you get, the more you, as a whole, the more wealthy we get, the more we feel like we deserve it, like we earned it, we got here, I did all this, right? Mm-hmm. And I think one of the ways I push that off is by noting 3 things that I'm grateful for in my life every single day. That, right? It's easy to, when you realize all the awesome things that have happened to you, then it's a little bit harder to be like, I made all this happen by my own self, right? Mm-hmm. But so back to the immigration thing, I think about if I got lucky to be born in Kansas City in 1977 to 2 parents who loved me their whole lives and were proud of me their whole lives. That's like, if you gave me the choice of winning the Powerball or winning that lottery, I have to take that lottery every single day. Mm-hmm. And so when I think about if the lottery that I had been given would be to have been born in Tijuana, Mexico, guess what I would be doing? If, assuming I could keep my native entrepreneurialism, right? Mm-hmm. I would be over here making as much money as I could, sending as much money as I could back home. That's what I'd be doing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so how can I condemn myself for doing that when right? We all exist in a cycle. It is what it is. And I am a capitalist. When I worked right out of college, I was doing some piecework for a friend of mine. His dad had a company where I would travel around the country wiring computer networks in retail stores. Mm-hmm. And I always said to him, please, please, please pay me by the job, because I'd fly into a location and I'd do 10 stores in that location and then fly home. Okay. Well, I don't want to get paid by the day. I want to knock these out. I want to work 23 hours a day and I want to get back home with that big fat check. Mm-hmm. I think it is very important to base the compensation on the effort that you put in. Mm-hmm. However, I also know that when we took Madison Supply from a 6-figure annual to a 7-figure annual business, that required no more incremental work from me, right? I am making more money now by doing nothing than I was when I was working the hardest I ever worked in my 20s, because capital is easy to make money with. Mm-hmm. And so and the tools get bigger, right? There's a whole bunch of science about how when the tools, the apps and the programs become larger and larger, it becomes easier for all of that value to get dumped to the top. I mean, it would stagger anyone to know how much money 4K Weeks pays to Meta every year, right? And so they're not working harder for that money. Do you know what I mean? They just built a tool and are just, now they're capturing all of that upside. Mm-hmm. And I am not, I have no ill will, right? Mm-hmm. Do your thing, build your tool, build your business. However, maybe billionaires don't need to exist for the health of our nation. I know that's a controversial statement, but I feel like I'm not doing the things I'm doing for money now, even at my teensy tiny little rounding error amount of wealth compared to, a titan of industry these days, right? Jeff Bezos is not working as hard as he is working, and I know he's a hard worker because of an extra dollar. Mm-hmm. And so maybe at this point it's just a status game. I heard a quote a long time ago that after you make $999 million, every other dollar should be taxed 100%, and we should give you a bronze plaque that says you win capitalism. Right? I mean, I think it just speaks to the fact that that money doesn't matter there, right? Yeah. But it really could do, if effectively used. Now, of course, all of this depends on a functional government where things can actually get done. Yeah. But infrastructure can change lives, and the only way to build infrastructure is by spending public money on it. Anyway, that's enough. But I feel really strongly about that. I feel like I have been broke, right? I have rolled into Fayetteville, Arkansas, on fumes, hoping that the work I was going to do in Fayetteville would pay me enough money that I could buy gas to get back. Right now, even in that moment, I could have just come home to my parents. My parents would have come and got me. So, right. And I've also been wealthy, and I just know that it's like there's a balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah, you've said several times that like nobody's going to outwork you.
yeah.
You may not be the most athletic or most whatever, but nobody's going to outwork you.
Yeah.
And the motto in our home when my kids were growing up is that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And my three kids, thank the Lord, they're the hardest working people I know. And I think where the challenge comes in, and it seems like you are in that sweet spot of doing it well, is being the hardest working person, yet living a prioritized life, not compromising relationships, body, just for the sake of working hard. It all fits together.
I got really lucky. I have two older sisters, and they helped raise me quite a bit. And I had a lot of feminine energy, attention when I was young, right? So that 10 and 12 years older than me, and so they basically raised me along with my parents, and I feel like that really helped me. Masculinity, it's a huge topic right now, and apparently men have a hard time expressing their feelings and talking about their feelings. And I would say that our culture doesn't necessarily reinforce that being a good thing, right? Be a man, shut up and do it, right? And I think something I'm really proud about myself is that I can be a man in that old timey be a man way, right? I mean, we can go 12 rounds, but I also have such a great relationship with my wife and my children because my kids have seen me cry at movies. That is part of being a human, being sad, right? And I think that if you can't be in touch with those things, then you drown that sorrow with whatever drug of choice it is, and work is a drug, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So that's if anything, I owe it to my parents and my sisters that I am balanced in that way and can see that nobody's gonna say at my funeral, he sure did have the best business. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've been lucky there.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna close on this. Delay the Decay is about prioritizing, living life to the fullest by prioritizing 5 life domains.
Yeah.
Spiritual, relational, physical, mental, and financial.
Yeah.
That to really live life to the fullest, prioritizing those 5. You and I have had some conversations. We have some beliefs in that first one that aren't the same.
Sure.
And I am okay with that. It's like
Thank
my
you.
guess. I mean,
I'm also okay with it.
yeah. The evidence of that is that you're one of my very first guests, and I know exactly where you're at on that. But you had mentioned that if you had a religion, it would be Stoicism.
Sure.
And I had to look up actually what Stoicism was, even though, and after I read it, I go, oh yeah, I'm familiar.
You know
with that.
exactly what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm gonna read the dictionary definition and then just talk to me about how that's an important part of your thinking and the way that you live your life.
Sure.
It says Stoicism is an ancient philosophy that emphasizes virtue, reason, and living in accordance with nature to achieve flourishing or living well. It provides a practical framework for improving one's life by focusing on what is within one's control, thoughts and actions, and accepting what is not external events and actions of others. Stoicism encourages the development of 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. Now I could get on board with that.
Yeah. It's fairly
talk to
Christian
me-
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, very is. Like I wonder, like which came first. I think I have a strong opinion on that. But I mean, I could have been reading out of things Jesus said.
Yeah.
But talk to me why it's important to you and how you live your life in accordance to Stoicism.
Sure.
Are those fair questions?
Yeah, those are totally fair questions. And so this is what I'll first say. I grew up raised Christian. My dad has his master's degree in theology. My mom is a deacon in the Episcopal Church and was a hospice chaplain her whole life. We went to church every Sunday. And you're right. Stoicism and Christianity, there's just a lot of overlap. And I think, when I was younger, I moved away from Christianity just from an intellectual perspective, right? But I have never disagreed with anything that I have heard that Jesus said. Right. Like I feel, I feel like it's the humans that let me down in the religion piece. And you're right. Stoicism is very Christian in the sense of Christ-like, which, is basically to just, don't throw stones. People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, right? The person who's without sin cast the first stone. All of that is to say that I can't do anything about any of that stuff out there unless I first deal with this here. And in fact, again, we all exist in the cycle of history. And I quoted the Gospel of Thomas before, which is one of the Gnostic Gospels, and people don't think that was the true gospel. The one thing that really sticks out to me is that quote that I said about, Jesus. I think it's John that said, "If you come, I am the light. Come to me for salvation." Right, and that Thomas translated that as like, "Go inside yourself." And I think that like, regardless of how you see it, and I want for everyone the faith that brings them hope and life. True, you know what I mean? Like I think that how could I possibly know what is right for even my children, frankly, right? And that was a great gift that my parents gave me, is that they did not come down with a hammer on me when I disagreed with them in this way, which gave me the space to find my own way. Sorry, I'm talking about a lot of things that aren't Stoicism.
So it's okay.
But I was seeking. I've always been seeking. And I think that, that is Christ-like, right? That is the lesson, what is here? What is going on? Who am I? How can I interact with the people around me? Should I condemn them? Should I love them unconditionally, right? All of these things. And when I found Stoicism, I had kind of stopped thinking about the spiritual aspects of life like a person in their late 20s, early 20s can do, right? Because you're focused on the practical concerns and not the things that we return to as we have children, and we're like, oh, what is this all about? I'm going to die one day, right? And Stoicism really helped put a pin on, put some words to the feelings that I had my whole life. And I think I've always thought that like writers are the best thinkers, because you have all these thoughts swirling around in your head and they don't have to make sense together. You can just have this thought over here that totally contradicts this thought, and you never are forced to reconcile them. And so writers have to reconcile those things. And so when I was reading all these thoughts, I was reconciling with the stuff I had been thinking. And I can control vanishingly little about the world around me. I can't control if my children, when they're younger, if they throw a fit in this restaurant. I can only control if when they throw a fit, I also throw a fit. Right? I cannot control what happens to me, but I can control how prepared I am for it. Right? I can't control, Marcus Aurelius has this thing he said to him. So Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the world at the time, he wrote Meditations, which is probably the #1 Stoic book. And it was just his personal diary. He wasn't writing it for other people. He was just writing it to remind himself. And he writes this thing, and I'm going to paraphrase. It's basically like, today you will be beset by fools. All sorts of people will try to push their agenda on you, try to tear you down, distract you, do all of these things that are going to derail you from the path you have set out for yourself. But they don't know what they're doing. They're just trying to do the best they can with what they have. And so don't let them get to you. Don't sink to their level. Just do what you know you need to be doing. And I just I found a lot of peace in those truths. And I've always loved philosophy, but I hate that philosophy is like, there's a word for it I'm not going to use on your podcast, but this like it's just not, we're arguing to be arguing. We're not arguing to get anywhere, right? We can debate any point. You take one side, I'll take the other. It doesn't matter what conclusion as long as we argue, right? And Stoicism is philosophy, but not bad. Like my favorite book about Stoicism is The Art of Living. It's a translation of Epictetus's Enchiridion. It's a modern translation. It's more fun to read. It makes a little more sense straight away. And it starts off by first decide what you would be, then do what you have to do. Like that's some information I can get behind.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just all really practical advice for how to walk through the world with integrity. And to how to encourage justice in the world. And I this is a word salad.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Thank you for that. I'd love to read a couple of those books that you've read and learn about that. Yeah. And this is for another time. It'd be fun when I'm in Kansas City or if we do this again or whatever, but like just even to talk about, because the fundamental, the most important point of Christianity, right, is who is Jesus? That's the biggest question. Like, who is Jesus, right? You know, people that are Christians say that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, right? He's the only way to eternal salvation. And so the fundamental question that every human being needs to answer is who is or who was Jesus, you know? And that's and those kind of conversations should and can be had without through dialogue. Yeah. I think it was Covey that said that a debate is, I'm trying to convince you I'm right, you're convincing me that you're right. And a dialogue is seeking to understand one another more than seeking to be understood. And it's, you're easy to do that with. So
well, that's kind of you to say.
Yeah.
I feel like the best world is going to come when I am supportive of the path that you are on and that you are taking to find the truth in you. And even if I'm like, oh, that's not the path I'm on, it's still right next to still right next to each other. It's like, hey, I see you over on your path. How you doing? Do you need some water? You know, like that's the world I want to live in. The world where we are focusing on the things we have in common.
Yeah.
So
would it be wrong to like for me to go like I really like to see Spencer on the path that I'm on. Like I see that he's doing really a good job in his life, but like I'd kind of like to see him on my path.
So that's funny. So that is where I would say that's like the human instinct for ego a little bit, right? That we all want, because that's not wrong, because I want to see you on my path too, right? I want to be clarified there that we all want, like I say that, I say this to my wife a lot. Well, if I thought I was doing it wrong, I'd be doing it differently. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that is ego and hubris, and the antidote to that is humility, because you know, there's all sorts of illusions that kind of prove this point. Like we're both looking at this thing, and you're saying it's a squirrel, and I'm saying it's a dog, and then if I switch to your perspective, I'm like, oh, from your perspective, it totally looks like a squirrel, right? You know.
Yeah.
And you know, there is truth, there are facts, but almost all of the important stuff in the world is full of nuance and colored and gray. And so who the hell am I to tell you how you're...
Well, this has been delightful. It's been life-giving. I am so thankful that our paths crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really am. I'm just really
take credit
really
for
fun.
it. I mean, it was just a moment of courage that you had that
Appreciate
created this
that.
dialogue. So it's awesome. Thank you for doing it.
You know, kind of the tagline for Delay the Decay and the way I live my life is that life is about direction, not perfection.
Yeah.
And if we get stuck in perfection, we never move forward.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure we're on a trajectory, and we do that one little step at a time, one little habit at a
Totally.
time. So my blessing to you, my encouragement to you is just continue to live in a direction where you can flourish and other people can flourish, and keep pursuing all these things that give you life and give other people life. And we'll see you again. In person or online.
All right. I appreciate it.
And for the rest of you, we'll see you on the next episode. We're doing these weekly, so you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, or on Apple. So until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to Delay the Decay. If today's conversation resonated with you, follow, subscribe, and share it with someone else on the journey. Until next time, keep prioritizing what matters. And remember, it's about direction, not perfection.